You're right on time because Orange Juice in the Kitchen is about to get started. We're your hosts. I'm Annie Graff.
And I'm Maggie Jensen. Pull up a chair because the OJ is flowing and it's about to get juicy.
We're getting deep in our convos about sobriety and mental health because that's how we've both found deep love for ourselves and the lives we live.
And when you love yourself in your life, there's nothing to escape. This is the real on how vibrant and colorful alcohol freedom feels. So grab your glass.
Cheers, besties. Let's chat. We are back with OJ in the Kitchen. It's your girl, Annie.
And Maggie, we are so excited for today's episode. We have some hard-hitting questions from members of society who are starting their sober journeys, and they have a lot of blank spaces that they're wanting to fill with a sense of assurance and confidence that if they set out for alcohol freedom, that it's not as scary as maybe their minds are portraying. So I'm really excited. Annie, I know you are too.
Yeah, no, honestly, I love a lot of these questions. And so guys, whether you're like beginning on your sobriety journey or you're kind of still dabbling in that sober curiosity where these are concerns you might have, we just want to shed some light, being that Maggie and I are both way beyond. Myself, I'm nearly at a year and a half of sobriety, which is insane. And so we have some good perspective here that we just want to share with you guys to ease those worries and remind you with anything, any journey that you set out, you know, the beginning part is sometimes the most difficult because it's new hard. It's the unfamiliar difficult. And a lot of times in life, we tend to choose the familiar difficult. So a lot of people in the beginning of sobriety, I feel like, have these very similar frustrations, struggles, questions. And if anything, we hope to just give you guys some insight on what it might look like a little bit further down the road, especially when you're doing some of the deep working and the internal deep dive to figure out, how to maneuver these things. So I don't know. Maggie, you want to start off? Guys, we have a list of the questions here, so we're just going to kind of pick some that are tugging at our hearts. So,
yeah, I think before we dive into the questions, I want to share my quote that's on my heart that really ties in with what we're going to talk about today. Because gosh, as we read through these questions, we see our past versions of ourselves so fully, so wholly, like the fear that held us back. And my quote that's coming through is Napoleon Hill: any idea that is conceived and believed, you will achieve. And I think now looking back, that runs both ways. I had this idea and I created this fear, this terror barrier around sobriety to where it plugged into my beliefs that sobriety would be boring. It would mean I have no friends. It would mean literally my life would just be devoted to saying don't drink. And so through that conception of that idea and that belief, that is really what manifested for me. But when I found the courage to step forward, even in the face of fear, I was able to recreate my perception of sobriety. And I was able to see that these fears were really just imagined things. And so that shifted my beliefs and that shifted my reality. So going through these, try to kind of put yourself in the driver's seat of these questions being asked and say, how much am I creating this belief when I just haven't experienced it yet? And if I experience it, I could actually shift that conception. So let's start off with, I think, one of the main questions that people ask in the very early weeks or months. This writer, this person said, month 2 of sobriety, and my motivation and my energy is still down. Will it get better? Annie, I'm going to let you start with this one because I feel like you have such a good way to explain this.
Yeah, I love this question because this is something that I constantly struggled with, especially in like kind of those shorter term sobriety stints that I've had in the past, where I almost got so excited about the beginning phases, right? Like challenging yourself in a new way. And okay, for real, I'm going to be better this time. Okay, I'm going to, say no to those tempting events and social situations. I'm going to just like, do my own thing. And like, for me at least in the past, that got me through kind of maybe like the first few weeks of the excitement of this new goal of sobriety. And then all of a sudden I would find myself, honestly, that this person's talking from that 2 month point. That sounds about spot on for me, because for me and a lot of people that we've talked with who are in this place, it's like that initial excitement is kind of worn off. Now this is like, okay, wait, so straight up, like this is what I'm doing now. And that's how it's felt for me in the past. It's like, if you're not focusing on something else or putting your energy, your time, your excitement toward, okay, I'm going to do this sober thing, but I'm not simply just going to get excited about staying away from alcohol, point blank period. That's it. Like, that's really my focus. If you have other things to excite you and to use your time, your energy, your skill sets, your passions, like really, what we say with the sober experiment is like experimenting with life. I can definitely see why I felt that way in the past and why that just led me back into this cycle of my negative and toxic coping mechanisms and habits that revolved around drinking at the time, right? And so what I would say to this person is, yes, it will go away. And with anything in life, we ebb and flow. We are up some days, we're excited, we have energy some days, and then there's going to be seasons of, it's raining outside and I don't feel like it, and I'm sore and I'm tired, and the initial excitement of new goals or those certain things, achieving goals, are going to kind of go away. That being said too, is like at month 2, you're like, yeah, I can do this. Look at, I have been doing it. I remember at one point I'd hit like a month of sobriety and I I literally was like, oh, so I can do this. So I don't have a problem. So like the boringness that I'm feeling, I don't need to feel that. Let me just like dive back into everything I was doing before, because clearly I'm capable of this. So why am I forcing myself into this boredom? And I would say, just if you want to find and move past that, I would encourage you, to anybody who's feeling this way or worried about feeling this way, and that's what's holding you back, is to decide you're going to be committed to like, okay, I want to find love and excitement and joy and abundance and peace and, all this fulfillment in sobriety. So that being said, I'm going to align with other goals, other passions, other communities that will be aligned with that goal, and that's a big part of what we encourage with the sober experiment is like, okay, so sobriety is what you want to achieve, but that's not your everything, right? Maggie, I don't know if there's anything you want to add there, but that's kind of what I would say is like, for me in the beginning part of sobriety, I felt that in a little bit. This last kind of real go at it, now being a year and a half, I remember 2 months in being like, oh, okay, life is feeling a little bit more, it's different. And I think in the past I classified that as boredom or kind of complacency, or just kind of like, well, is this it? And this last time it was more like, wow, okay, this is this stillness that I was so scared of in the past. And actually now, because I am aligned with it, with bodybuilding, with fitness, with building a business, with meeting new people, experimenting with life in new ways, trying out new hobbies and working on myself, I had things to occupy my time with. So I knew it wasn't boredom. And it was this kind of rewiring of the way I perceived that feeling, to be like, wait, this is actually just peace. This is actually just not chaos that I've been so accustomed to.
Right. And I think that It's really interesting because when we did go at it alone, and when it was only like 4 weeks off, and I'm just gonna do dry January, sober October, and for so many people who are just programmed to follow suit with regular strategies to sobriety, the primary focus really in the early stages is focusing on not drinking. And then eventually that becomes the norm. And you're like, okay, I'm now accustomed to coming home and doing something different than having the drink. So that excitement, like you said, it wears off. But then there's that caveat that in that moment where that excitement wears off, you get the freedom to say, what do I really want in life? And I think the break and the disconnect is people introducing sobriety into their life, getting to month 1, month 2, without asking themselves, what do I really love to do? And what do I really want to do? Because for so long, alcohol was that one thing we wanted to do. Alcohol, drinking was that one thing that drove us to action and doing things. And without it, we kind of draw blanks. We're like, well, I don't know. What do I like? And so I think it's such a vital brainstorm activity every single day, especially in month 1 and month 2, to start thinking, what do I like? And I know that in the beginning, everything that popped in my mind it was just laughable, because my perception was, yeah, going for a walk without alcohol, going for a hike, going for a trip to the Grand Canyon without alcohol, that sounds lame. But then you go and you do it and you actually prove to yourself, I do enjoy this. And then that's where the motivation and the energy to do more comes about. It's like, can I take an audit of all of the things that I've put on the back burner for drinking and get involved now? Because desire is the triggering mechanism for energy. And if you do not know what you desire, of course you're going to feel down and you're going to feel pretty aimless and listless about your alcohol-free lifestyle. So it's about not just making your purpose not to drink today, but what do I want to do with my life now that I have my health and my routines and my structure and my energy, so that I can plug into those things. And, I'll be real that, like, when I read these things, my heart goes out to people asking this, because, Annie, have we had any TSE members that in month 2, they're like, I just don't feel energized, I don't feel motivated?
Honestly, no, I was literally going to say that same thing. Like, it's all about, like, yeah, how are you approaching it? And I had tried so many other things that made me feel that same way. So it's beautiful to see that, there is another way to do it, where, yeah, like, physical energy levels. And I'm realizing now, like, hearing you speak too, Maggie, is like, I kind of took that jump from, like, motivation and energy to something more broad topic wise, but, like, really even just to touch on, like, the physical energy part of that. I want to give kind of an example for anybody who's like, okay, yeah, I understand that, but, like, literally I'm just kind of, like, exhausted, and I just motivationally, I'm like, ugh. And I want to remind you guys, so this is something that I started to really, like, try to figure out for myself, because this is a, like, fact, and it's almost, actually, when you learn about it, it makes a lot of sense. So when alcohol is a part of our life, we are attaching, and I'm going to kind of, like, dumb this down. So for anybody listening that, like, very much in the science brain and all that sort of stuff, this is just a very simplified version. But when alcohol is a part of our life, and the things we look forward to in our life are revolving around alcohol, or alcohol is a key player in those situations, our brain attaches dopamine, which dopamine is a chemical, a
Neurotransmitter.
is a neurotransmitter that is related to happiness, enjoyment, those high vibes that we feel in life, right? So when most of the things we're looking forward to, think my Friday nights after work, and okay, high stress job. I can't wait to just get home and just like open a bottle of wine and be on the couch by myself. And oh, I'm looking forward to this concert I booked for 2 weekends from now. I can't wait. I can't wait. I can't wait. When all of those things that you are really looking forward to and the things you're not going to get to that weekend and be like, I just don't have energy. I'm not going to go to the concert. Or, oh, sorry, friends. I've been looking forward to this, but I'm just like not feeling it. A lot of our high energy is going to be spent on those things, right? So that being said, our body attached dopamine, and it kind of like produces dopamine when we even start to think about those things. And when alcohol becomes a staple in those situations, it actually kind of confuses our brain, because the consumption of alcohol also is an artificial additive, essentially, of dopamine. So our body stops kind of naturally producing that dopamine. And it's like, oh, well, alcohol's going to give me that. I know they're already excited about this. Like, so it kind of fucks with our body's natural production of dopamine. So now when you remove alcohol and your body's at its normal state, life at first might feel like, so this is with alcohol. Everybody that's watching this video, this is with alcohol, right? So we're down here. It's like a Wednesday. We're high stress. We're low, like, oh my God, let me just get to Friday. And then we're Friday and we're like, oh my God, no work. I got my friends. I got my girls. I got no stress. Okay. I have my alcohol. I got my, we're going to go out to the bars, whatever that is. Woo, we're up here. And then, Sunday comes around, you're hungover, you're anxious, you're overthinking, goes right back down here. And then, we kind of ride this wave. I like to think of it as honestly chasing this chaos, this dopamine high that we're constantly trying to find.
Yep.
When alcohol is no longer a part of it. And even some of those situations like going out with the girls on a Friday night, not something you're maybe doing as much of, because kind of a two-factor thing. Like, you don't know how to socialize without alcohol, and you don't know, okay, is that even fun anymore? So you're just at home. Life kind of might feel more like this, right? But as you continue to live into this and you allow your body to re-regulate to its natural production of the neurotransmitters that it already knows how to make, you start to attach that dopamine and your body starts to produce it, but it can become attached to the smaller things, like just, oh my God, my morning cup of coffee, or a good conversation with a friend, or getting out into sunshine and walking, moving your body, that workout class that you're, sweating and you're getting those endorphins going. So it starts to become more regulated, and your kind of lifeline goes up like this. And so it's a slow process. So month 2, your body might still be here in terms of like your dopamine level and what's exciting you and what feels, really like anticipation worthy for you. And that's okay. I would just really encourage you, if that's where you're at, to stick with it and find those small moments that you do enjoy. For me, that looks like cuddling my dog, and getting together with my mom and my sister, calling a friend, getting a really good workout in, going for a long walk, an audiobook, like these things that in pre-sobriety honestly felt like, okay, well, yeah, that's fine. It's not like I disliked any of those things, but I wasn't attaching a lot of my excitement to those small moments of life. So anyway, that was a long way to say, right now, if your energy and motivation is down, it might be due to some other like more internal chemical things going on that your body just needs to learn how to re-regulate on its own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everything will feel dull in between. Like, even if you are still drinking Monday through, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday, things will feel dull. So the things that we're saying, like go for a walk, that's going to sound lame. Oh, you look forward to making a phone call? Oh, that's weird. But as you progress, as your body stabilizes and relearns how to naturally produce that dopamine, no lie, you will look forward to your Friday night gym sesh the same way that you used to look forward to going out and drinking, but you will have an added echelon of gratitude that this is how you're spending your time now. So if you resonate with this question, keep pushing, keep persisting. It will get better, especially when you can start giving yourself permission to be excited about things instead of being, oh, that's lame. Don't judge yourself before you try it. And understand that your body is doing some amazing things without you even consciously forcing it. It's just healing. It takes time. 2 months feels like a long time, but relatively speaking, it probably is just a blimp on the map compared to how long you were drinking. I know that's very, very true for Annie and I. So with that question, though, and what you were just saying, one of the other questions really popped up into my mind, and it was about kind of what you said, oh, just getting home and popping open the wine. Another question was, how do you handle the evenings after a day with a stressful job? And I want to take kind of the beginning of this, and I know Annie's going to have a great way to articulate this as well, but I always go straight to perception. When it comes to this question and just reading the language of it, how do you handle the evenings after a day with a stressful job? Well, every job could be perceived as stressful. Is it that we haven't tuned into gratitude for this job, for this employment? Maybe the service that you provide, the value that you bring to the lives of people that you help with every day. I know that can sound really lame if you're like, well, my boss picks on me and I had these difficult customers. Well, that stress is perpetuated by a lack of dopamine, but also somewhat of a self-image of, I can be going into my job 9 to 5 and not making any big impact. Why am I not fulfilled? Why is this coming through as stress? So I think for me, it could be pointing to a few things. Do you like your job? And I know Annie and I have both found that through our own journeys, but also the members of the Sober Experiment, a lot of people, they shelve alcohol and then they have this awakening of like, wow, I settled for a 9 to 5 that I don't really enjoy, but drinking made it bearable. So it was like, okay, as long as I can escape on the weekends, I can handle Monday through Friday. But if your job is so stressful, so unaligned, misaligned with who you are, then could it be time to maybe start looking into other ventures, other things? If you feel like your job is well aligned with you, but maybe you're just perceiving stress, how can you be grateful for the job that you have? How can you look at the service that you provide, the people that you work with, and say, I'm so happy to be a part of this bigger thing, this bigger community? I think comparison, they say, is the thief of joy. But sometimes if I compare myself to a previous version of myself that was unemployed because of my drinking issues, because I lost my job, then I could say, wow, actually, all of those stressors of my day-to-day work, they feel easy. Looking at somebody who would dream of this work, would dream of spending their time working on this thing, does that make it better? Could that help a little bit with your perspective of it? And then look at, how do you handle the evenings? Well, evenings aren't meant to be handled. They're meant to be enjoyed. They're meant to be a moment of peace, your own time for you. So if you're bringing the stressors of work home and you're not able to detach from that and say, okay, now it's time for me to devote time to me, then of course it's going to feel like I just have to handle this evening with some other outside source versus I'm going to be present with this evening and I'm going to figure out a way to enjoy my time versus escape my time. So I'm interested to see kind of what you think, Annie, too.
I just love that my first instinct on like how I was going to respond to this is so different than yours. But I think that's like the beautiful yin yang energy that we always have. Because I was going to dive into the habit loop, and I want to explain to you guys, I have been there where, my initial response to stress would be to disassociate, numb, ignore, avoid, to kind of take myself mentally out of the stress, because I honestly didn't know how to do what Maggie was kind of saying. I struggled to leave work there doing what I do. I pretty much have done the same, essentially like online coaching fitness work when I was drinking as I do now. And it's so crazy to see how my response to the same exact emotion has changed. But I want to walk you guys through the habit loop, because this is kind of really, it's a it's a like brain shattering moment. If you don't recognize this, you can kind of apply this to yourself and just start to put this into play. Okay, so if you guys don't know about the habit loop, essentially, it explains why we do the things that we do, how they become habits, and then how potentially, I'm going to share with you guys how we can kind of start to rewire and pinpoint, hey, this is exactly what needs changing, and here's where I'm going to see benefit. And then the more and more that we put that into play, the better we get at responding to certain emotions, certain feelings, certain environments, things that in life we don't really have control over. And ultimately, like, this has helped me so much, because stress in life is probably not going to go away. Like, I'm going to be honest, like, I've had stress when I was blacking out 5-6 days a week, and I have stress now in sobriety, but the way I respond to it has changed. And so if you're struggling, and if the feeling, the emotion of stress is causing you to feel like you're like, I'm looking at you, wine bottle, like I'm looking at all my friends out on a Thursday night, that sounds really great. The more you can understand this habit loop I'm going to walk through, and be like, no, actually, I get this now. That is a game changer. So the habit loop essentially it has 4 sections, and the first one is a cue. So I'm going to talk through 4 of them. So it's cue, craving, response, and reward. Cue essentially is something that happens. So this is like not controllable. Okay. So this is something, it happens, and it's an event, an experience, a moment, a situation, and boom, you're now like emotionally, like, think like triggered, right? But that word doesn't have to mean what you might think it means. Triggered, I feel like in today's context, is like, don't trigger them. How dare you? But it could be good or bad, right? So cue, that's what that is. It's going to essentially trigger a craving. And ultimately, this is your need for something. So let's say this cue is a stressful day. We're going to use this person's example. So you're stressed, your boss is getting on you, you have a deadline, you have, high needy clients, you have something going on, all these things are hitting at once. Okay, you're stressed. Cue. Got it. You're triggered. We're going to go to craving. Your craving is going to be like, I want to not feel this. I just want to relax. I want to like just feel at peace. I want silence. I want, so these sort of things that we crave in these moments that we're triggered. Okay. When alcohol has constantly been the solution, the next block that goes into is response, right? So typically this is where I had put alcohol in a lot of my habit loops. It was literally this response for so many different things, for stress, for anxiety, for sadness, grief, celebration, excitement, birthdays. Like, it was literally my go-to, no matter what the cue or the craving was. For some reason, alcohol was the response. And that is constantly how I handled a lot of situations. So I had a lot of rewiring to do in a lot of my habits. But again, we'll go with the same example. So response is alcohol. Essentially, what that really means deeper down is I want to avoid. I'm going to disassociate. I'm going to distract. I'm going to numb. I'm going to just not think about it. I'm just going to, mentally block it out. That's how you're choosing to respond. Alcohol does have those effects on us. So while in the moment of like consuming alcohol and you're feeling tipsy, you're feeling good, you're forgetting about your work issues, you're, at home on the couch, you're like, wow, now for some reason I feel like reaching out to so-and-so, whereas all day I didn't want to talk to anybody. That is you, essentially your brain is completely disregarding everything else that's going on and numbing, like I said, avoiding, distracting, all those things. So the thing to remember about these responses is that everything has a reward. Ultimately, we do the things we do because whether it's a 1-second reward or a longer term reward, we associate, in this case with alcohol, that response of drinking when you're at home after a stressful day. The reward is that for maybe a few hours before your head hits the pillow and you get less than quality sleep because you're drunk and or tipsy or whatever it is, you are after a reward. So in this situation, it is I don't have to put the mental energy into figuring these things out. I don't have to feel the uncomfortable emotion of stress. I don't have to think about all the things I have to do to whatever. I can just literally remove myself, and for an hour, right before I go to bed, I feel okay. However, the thing with this is, when alcohol was my go-to response, that was a very short-term reward. And here's what I want you guys to recognize is that short-term reward oftentimes continues into a longer-term negative effect. Okay, so this is what I was seeing with my drinking. And obviously, if you guys are here, maybe you're seeing the same thing. This is pretty normal. If it's that day after anxiety, maybe it's the overthinking. Maybe you did take out your phone when you're feeling drunk. You're like, I'm going to call so-and-so, I'm going to text so-and-so, or, maybe the next day you're oversleeping and then you missed that meeting that you were stressing about in the first place. Maybe it's your physical health, your mental health, it's relationships, ultimately, a lot of times when your go-to response is alcohol, there are longer-term negative effects, right? Mm-hmm. So now I want to kind of explain, if you change that response, if we take alcohol out of the picture, honestly, the cues aren't going to change. The cravings probably aren't going to change. But what we can change is the response. And that will trigger the reward to be night and day difference. Okay, so essentially what I'm saying for you guys is find, I know this felt like a really long workaround, but find a thing that, a hobby in your life, something that consumes you time-wise. Find something you can put in place of that drinking, rather than, I know a lot of people say like, oh, if you're, in sobriety, just like feel the feels. And I'm not saying not to feel the feels, but I'm saying start to build this toolbox, if you will, of coping mechanisms and of healthy habits and healthy processing tools that you can start to plug in place into that response box, right? So instead of the alcohol, instead of numbing, disassociating, forgetting, avoiding, and all of that, what we're going to do is, okay, I'm feeling stressed. I'm recognizing that I am feeling like I don't want to feel this, and I want to feel at peace, and all those same things, those cravings we talked about. What would allow me to feel that way in this moment? So maybe instead of a bottle of wine when you get home from work, it is moving your body. It's going on a long walk. It's getting a workout in. It's meeting up with a friend who really helps you feel at peace and heard and seen. Someone who understands you, someone who allows you to be free in your expression of you. Maybe it's art. Maybe it's, there can be so many different answers here, but ultimately finding a new and healthy response that actually feels good for you, it's going to require you to experiment with things. When alcohol is consuming your life, and I know this for a fact from my situation, from my past, is when alcohol comes first, everything else comes last. Mm-hmm. So you forget what makes you happy. You forget how you enjoy spending your time. You forget you forget what hobbies you used to have. And when you would start doing something and time would fly and you look at the clock and be like, oh my gosh, it's already been 6 hours. I've been doing this XYZ project, this thing, and I didn't even know I was just enjoying myself so much. So we forget to spend time in those areas. And so that's why when we take away alcohol, it can feel like, how do I cope with this? How do I do this? I'm stressed. What do I do? And that's why we encourage our members in the sober experiment to start experimenting. Because you know what? Like for me, I forgot how much I loved art. And it's not because I'm good at art. It's because I genuinely enjoy creating things, taking something from my mind and making it into a physical canvas, writing is a form of art, poetry, whatever. I forgot that because I just wasn't spending time doing it when alcohol was the only way I coped with everything. Mm-hmm. So experiment, find new things to plug into that response, and you're going to see that reward changes. Okay. Yeah. Maybe it takes, if it's like a workout, something physically demanding, or contacting and scheduling something with a friend, maybe there might be a small moment of like resistance, or like, okay, do I do this? Should I do this? Do I have the energy for this? But the more and more you can prove to yourself that these healthier mechanisms to cope with stress and whatever that craving, that cue is, the more you'll be able to say like, okay, yeah, I know getting physically to the gym is inconvenient right now to me mentally, but I know that that's going to come with a long-term positive reward. You're going to start seeing the results of changing that response, and it's going to be a night and day difference, just training yourself on a new habit. So now when I feel stress, I genuinely, alcohol doesn't even come up as a option. Like, and it's not just because I've been living into the sober identity for a year and a half. It's genuinely because I've associated stress relief with so many other things that make me feel good, not only in the moment, like alcohol used to, but afterward as well. So when I get back from a 30-minute walk, I'm energized, I'm passionate, I'm excited. I'm also at peace in my mind because I've been able to move my body, get some, dopamine, serotonin, some other good things flowing within my body. I'm sweating. I feel like I just did something good for myself. I'm confidence building. I know I'm doing something positive, so I'm proud of myself. And the more and more you can start doing this on the daily, the better you're going to see like, wow, actually, all these new responses that I have are so much more longer term beneficial, and even in the moment beneficial. Like it's not even a question, but it does take time to start to rewire the way we respond to these cues and cravings, the things in life that we can't control, because for so long our go-to was alcohol, was disassociating, ignoring, and avoiding. So be patient with yourself in this, but be really honest with yourself and be like, okay, yeah, what do I want to feel right now? What would make me feel that way, and how can I do that and achieve that in a healthy way that's also going to promote a longer term positive reward.
Mm-hmm. And you really hit the nail on the head when you said, I don't even think about alcohol when I'm stressed now. And I think that took both of us, our own experimentations of seeing like, does alcohol long-term actually relieve my stress? No, it perpetuates it. It takes such a toll on my mental health that now when I feel stressed out, if somebody in my environment says, oh, you're stressed, let's go have a drink. Or if for some reason that idea, that thought even crosses my mind, it is a literal reaction of, ugh, that would not make me feel less stressed. That would actually increase it. But that doesn't sound true to the person that's still lacking the dopamine, and where your baseline life just feels constantly stressful. You have nothing to relate it to. So actually responding with the walk, responding with journaling, responding with cooking, meal prepping, whatever creative mechanism, drawing, writing, all of those things. When you start to respond in that, you see, what actually de-stresses you, and you can start to define alcohol as a stressor. So it wouldn't make sense to have alcohol when you're stressed out. And that just like, it starts to become your habitual and unconscious way of thought. It doesn't cross your mind. If it does, you're like, no, that actually would not work. But it takes that habit loop reconditioning to actually experience it. It takes you getting on your feet and doing new things with your hands and really creating that new response pattern. And then the reflection of how it made you feel long term. Without that, I think it's easy to forget what actually worked. So reflecting and journaling on what did work. So I love how you brought in the habit loop. That is definitely one of the big pillars of the sober experiment that we hold our members accountable to understanding and learning. And every week there's literally feedback forms that like, I used the habit loop this week. Oh my gosh, I'm so proud of myself. And I just love that lesson brought to OJ in the Kitch listeners. And oh my gosh, we're already almost at 40 minutes with 2 questions. So we have a bunch of other questions. We are going to bring in more episodes where we can dive in deep and really explain these questions and knock down these terror barriers that are holding you back, or maybe just creating a lackluster experience of your initial sobriety, because that does not have to be the way it looks, huh, Annie?
Amen. Amen. And like, just so you guys know, like a lot of these questions that we, the 2 we chatted on today, but then the ones we're going to continue to bring to you guys, a lot of these struggles and like, uncomfy moments were things that even if I wasn't actually experiencing in the beginning of my sobriety journeys, previous plural journeys, attempts, I guess, they were things I thought of that kept me from even trying. You know what I mean? And so often that is what I see in a lot of other people as well, who are kind of in that sober, curious area. It's like, oh my God, well, there's no way I could be sober because I need my wine after work. Like, there's no way I could be sober because I would feel so boring, and like, those are kind of 2 of the questions that we chatted on today. And I just want to remind you guys, like, if there's any curiosity in your brain about what sobriety looks like and how to make it so fucking iconic and epic and rewarding and beautiful and peaceful and fulfilling, like, if there's a heart tug in you to experience it, I promise you it's there for a reason. And I just encourage you to follow through with that and just experiment with it, and figure out why that's there. But anyway, this was a very candid chat that I just absolutely loved. I hope you guys got something from it, and you will hear us next time on OJ in the Kitch.
Thanks for listening. Please share, like, comment, send us any additional questions. Maybe this brought about and stirred up some emotions for you. We are open ears. Email us, leave a comment, and we would love to connect. We will talk to you soon. Until next time.